I'm Adam.
And I'm Sugar.
And this is Where There's a Williams, There's a Way. Hey, Sugar, have you ever tried gingerbread?
Gingerbread? Is that some sort of icy treat?
Not quite. It's a yummy baked treat made with ginger, cinnamon, and other spices. People often make gingerbread houses during the holidays.
Oh, I see. Sounds interesting. Do they use ice to make those houses?
No, they use cookie dough and icing. But I bet an ice house would be right up your alley, huh?
Absolutely. An ice house with an ice gingerbread bear inside would be the dream.
In today's book, a young boy and his mother make a gingerbread baby that escapes from their oven and leads a crowd on a chase, similar to the one in the familiar tale about a not-so-clever gingerbread man. Let's get started. Gingerbread Baby by Jan Bread. It was cold outside. It was warm inside. A fine day for making gingerbread, Maddie thought. Maddie's mother put the big blue bowl on the table and lit the stove. Maddie took down a worn-looking cookbook with old-fashioned writing on the cover. He opened it up to the page that said Gingerbread Boy. They measured and mixed. Maddie rolled the dough into the shape of a gingerbread boy, and they popped him in the oven. Bake a full 8 minutes. No more, no less. Do not peek, the recipe read. Maddie listened to the clock. Tick, tock, tick. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3, 4, 5. Maddie couldn't wait any longer. He opened the oven door to take a peek. Instead of a gingerbread boy, out jumped a gingerbread baby. He pounced around the big blue bowl. I'm the gingerbread baby, fresh from the pan. If you want me, catch me if you can. Maddie's mother reached for the gingerbread baby to put him back in the oven, but he ran all around the kitchen. The door opened and in came Maddie's father. What's that delicious smell? He asked as the gingerbread baby tumbled through his legs and outside into the yard. He ran by the tabby cat. She twitched her tail and sprang at him. They rumbled and tumbled, but the gingerbread baby came out on top. He ran toward the garden wall. The dog caught a whiff of tasty ginger and sniffed along behind him. But the gingerbread baby was halfway up when the dog caught up. He barked and barked as the gingerbread baby climbed over the wall. Maddie was still inside. He heard his mother and father yelling. He heard a cat meowing and a dog barking. And he heard the gingerbread baby shouting, "Catch me if you can!" Maddie opened the worn-looking cookbook for the second time. Meanwhile, the gingerbread baby wheeled on down the path and into the barn. The goats looked up as he somersaulted across their backs. The last one tried to catch him, but the gingerbread baby was too fast. I imagine if he met you, he'd be in for a chilly surprise.
I can already see it. Run, run as fast as you can. You can't catch me. I'm the gingerbread man. But then he meets me and realizes, uh-oh, I might be in a bit of a pickle.
Totally. He'd sprint thinking he's safe until he encounters your love for icy treats. He might end up saying, "Phew, I outran everyone, but brr, this chilly bear is way too cool for me."
Exactly. I'd probably try to befriend him, though. Imagine a gingerbread man hanging out with a polar bear. Talk about an odd but sweet friendship.
That'd be quite the sight. A gingerbread buddy chilling with a polar bear? Just hoping our gingerbread friend doesn't turn into a frozen cookie in the process.
Let's keep our treats warm and our friendships even warmer, right?
Martha and Madeline were standing by the well when the gingerbread baby stopped to take a drink. They looked at each other and winked. Martha started to talk to him when Madeline tiptoed up behind him with the bucket, but they couldn't fool that gingerbread baby. He took a braid from Martha and a braid from Madeline and tied them in a knot and ran down the road. Back in the house, Maddie stirred, mixed, and rolled the dough. He shaped it, put it in a pan, and into the oven. Tick, tock, tick. 8 long minutes. This time he didn't peek. I will catch him if I can, Maddie said to himself. As he was bouncing along, the gingerbread baby saw a farm wagon just ahead. He jumped in and settled down for the ride next to the mama pig. The smell of gingerbread was too much for her. She tossed him high in the air, closed her eyes, and opened her mouth. But the gingerbread baby twisted in the air and came down hard on her porky snout. I am the gingerbread baby, too quick for the mother and the father, too fast for the cat, the dog, and the goats, too clever for Martha and Madeline, too smart for the mama pig. Who's left? Catch me if you can. Feeling smug, the gingerbread baby strolled along by himself until he came to a bridge that crossed over to the village. Just as he got to the middle, he heard running feet behind him and saw a crowd of villagers ahead of him. The gingerbread baby was trapped. He jumped up onto the railing, backflipped through the air, and landed on a chunk of ice floating down the river. The ice bobbed along with the gingerbread baby dancing on top and singing in a loud voice, Look at me, and what do you see? The best gingerbread baby ever! Until his feet got cold, then he jumped to shore. Who was that watching from the trees? It was the fox. He crept up behind the gingerbread baby, ready to eat him up. But the fox couldn't help himself, and he licked his chops, smack, smack. The gingerbread baby heard him and ran as fast as he could.
When you get upset, do you ever run away from your problems like the gingerbread baby?
I'm a pro at finding a cool solution, especially when it involves ice.
I guess that makes sense that you'd be cool and calm under pressure.
Ice cold. But hey, speaking of running away, there was this one time I encountered a huge block of melting ice, and I had to find a new place to chill. It was a slippery situation.
Oh wow, that does sound tricky. What'd you do?
I made a quick dash to find a safer ice flow. It was like a game of tag with the melting edges. Adaptability is key when you're a polar bear.
It's all about adapting on the fly. Running away can sometimes lead us to unexpected solutions, don't you think?
You're right. Running away doesn't always mean giving up. It's about finding a better path or a cooler way to solve problems.
Exactly. We both know how to navigate tricky situations. I guess running away isn't always a bad thing after all, as long as we learn and adapt along the way.
Just when the fox was catching up, the gingerbread baby saw the milk and cheese man with his can of milk. The perfect hiding place, he thought. He lifted the lid and lowered himself inside. He was so pleased that he sang at the top of his gingerbread voice, Ha ha hee hee, you'll never find me. I'm the gingerbread baby, catch me if you can. The milk and cheese man heard the gingerbread baby's voice. Who is meddling in my milk? He shouted and lifted the lid. But the gingerbread baby was ready. He jumped up and tweaked his nose. Now the milk and cheese man, the fox, the villagers, the mama pig, Martha and Madeline, the bleating goats, the barking dog, the meowing cat, the father and the mother were all after the gingerbread baby and getting closer. And he knew it. The brash baby was not as peppy and proud as he had been. He sniffed a familiar smell and followed his nose into the woods. He couldn't believe what he saw. There in the middle of a clearing was a gingerbread house, frosted with sugar, covered with candy, and doors with peppermint handles wide open. The gingerbread baby clapped his hands with glee and ran inside. In a tick-tock-tick, everyone arrived in the clearing, but all they found were a few bits of frosting, a peppermint candy, and some crumbs. The father exclaimed, "The gingerbread baby has finally met his match." "I wonder who it was," the mother said. "Let's go home and tell Maddie." "Hello, Maddie," his father said when they got home. "We never did catch that gingerbread baby. All we found was some crumbs in the snow." "I see you've been busy," his mother said, looking at the gingerbread house Maddie was holding. "Too bad we never caught that gingerbread baby." "Too bad," said Maddie. Only Maddie could hear the tiny voice from inside the gingerbread house. "I'm the little gingerbread baby, lucky as can be, to be living in the house that Maddie made for me."
It looks like the gingerbread baby found his dream house. Hey, didn't you move not too long ago?
Yeah, we were slowly outgrowing our old house. I like my new house a lot more, but there's always a bunch of projects to do when you move into someplace new.
I can imagine. Finding the perfect ice spot can be just as tricky. Remember that time I stumbled upon an iceberg that I was just a bit too slippery?
I can only picture you slipping and sliding all over the place.
It was hilarious. But hey, you know what they say. When life gives you slippery icebergs, slide around and enjoy it.
I've never heard that before, but I like it. And speaking of liking things, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. I'm Adam.
And I'm Sugar.
And this is Where There's a Williams, There's a Way. Did you know a doctor once wrote a prescription for gingerbreads for the Swedish king Hans to cure his depression?